Hello viewers, welcome to UVol, the channel for database and data professionals. This is the second part of the topic on integrating an Oracle database with Microsoft Active Directory or AD, and in this part I am going to demonstrate how to configure an Oracle database to work with Microsoft Active Directory to authenticate database users using AD. So viewers, in the first part of this series, we created a free Active Directory controller on a Windows Server 2019 in a VirtualBox virtual machine. If you have not watched the first part, I suggest you watch that first to have a better understanding on what we are going to do in this part. So in this second part, we will configure our AD controller and the Oracle database to create an AD authenticated database user, and we will log into the database using that user. I am using virtual machines created using Oracle VirtualBox for this demo, and I also have a full series of tutorials on Oracle VirtualBox virtual machines, starting from how to install it, create and manage virtual machines, etc. Watch the full series and create your own virtual IT lab to learn database, Unix, Linux, networking, or any other area in the IT world where you want to be an expert. Now, let's first get familiar with the virtual environment that we are going to use for this demo. This is my 64-bit Windows Server 2019 installed on a virtual machine named WinSVR1, where we configured our AD controller in the last part. Then this is our database server on a Linux virtual machine named VM Linux 1 with 64-bit Oracle Linux 7.9 and with Oracle RDBMS version 19.3 installed. We have a database named ORCL1 in this server. I just logged in as Oracle user to the server, who is the owner of all Oracle installations in this server. Now let's go back to our Windows Server 2019 or the AD controller and first configure it so we can integrate our Oracle database with it. I'm going to use mainly Windows PowerShell and command prompts to execute the configuration commands, and I am sharing all of them along with the steps in a shared document in my Google Drive. First, let's bring up a PowerShell to execute the commands. I'm going to create a user named Aura user using the new AD user command in PowerShell, and this user is not a database user but an AD user which the Oracle software will use to communicate with the Active Directory controller. So I'm going to use this command new AD user minus name, that is Aura user, user principal name, Aura user at manas.home. This manas.home is the domain that we created in the first part. And the display name for the user will be also Aura user. Description about the user is service account for Oracle database authentication. You can put anything you like to describe this user. Minus path that specifies the common name for the user, that is users, that is just a group of users which we are specifying here. Then DC, that is the domain component, the first part of our domain name, that is manas. And again, domain component, that is the second part of our domain name, that is home. Change password at logon, false. We don't want to change the password as we are going to use the same password throughout our demonstration. Password never expires, true. Cannot change password, true. Enable, true. And the account password, which it is prompting us to specify here, I'm going to use a complex password here, which is acceptable to the domain controller. And the password is user aura 12345 with the U capital, and the first E is replaced with the number 3. So user aura 12345, and the user has been created. To validate, we will use the command get AD user minus identity, which is aura user in double quotes, and we see the details about the user below. Next, we are going to find out the distinguished name for this user that we just created, and that distinguished name will be used in a few subsequent commands. To find the distinguished name, we will use the command get AD user minus identity Aura user properties distinguished name. You get the same output as the previous output, which also gives us the details about the user. Next, we are going to grant some permission to this Aura user on Active Directory, such as the lockout time, read write permissions, etc. Please note that these commands are very specific in terms of the syntax and spellings. So I'm going to use this command dsacls, where I'm specifying the common name of the user, the group, the domain, and the permissions granted. That is the lockout time, and we'll execute it. Next command, again using dsacls, and this will grant access on the certification authority to the user named Aura user. Next, we are going to copy the Oracle password filter, which is an executable, from the bin directory of the Oracle home from the server that we want to configure with the Active Directory. So let's go to our Oracle database server, and I'll show you which particular file I am talking about. First, let's see the Oracle home of the database named ORCL1. So this is the Oracle home. Let's go to the Oracle home, and under that, bin directory. And there are tons of executable files in this location, out of which we are interested in the file with .exe extension. So we'll put, and this is just one exe file which is available there in the bin directory named opwdintz.exe. So this is the file we need to copy to our domain controller. So let's go back to the domain controller, and here we will use the scp command to copy it from the database server. So scp, the user is Oracle, @ the IP address of our database server, that is 192.168.1.57 colon the Oracle home. I'm simply pasting the path to the exe file that we just saw in the bin directory under the Oracle home, and this will be copied to the desktop folder in this Windows server. And it will ask for a confirmation. Type in yes. And the Oracle password is also Oracle. And the file has been copied, and we can see this file on the Windows desktop. Now we are going to execute this opwdintz file, that is the password filter for Oracle, as an administrator. So right click on the file and run as administrator. It will ask for a confirmation. Do you want to extend AD schema? We'll type in yes and then press enter. Whether this change will be permanent or not, yes. This is going to take a few minutes. Press enter to continue. Do you want to install Oracle password filter? Again, type in yes and press enter. The change requires machine reboot. Do you want to reboot now? Yes. Press enter. Let's minimize the server manager and bring up the PowerShell again. And after the reboot, to validate if the Oracle password filters are installed, we are going to use the command get AD group filter name like Oracle pipe select. And if we scroll up in this output, we see 3 password filters are installed with the name Aura VFR 11Z, then Aura VFR 12C, and Aura VFR MD5. So these are the 3 password filters we want in our AD controller. Actually, these filters are nothing but password verifier security groups. Now we need to add the user that we created with the name Aura user to these 3 security groups using the command add AD group member minus identity Aura VFR 11Z minus members Aura user. So it will add the username Aura user to this first group, Aura VFR 11G. Similarly, we will also add that to the second group called Aura VFR 12C, and also to the third group named Aura VFR MD5. Next, we need to copy this Windows server's root certificate to the database server. But first, we have to create this root certificate, and to do that, we will go to Control Panel, then select this Turn Windows feature on and off, which will bring up this Add Roles and Features wizard. And in this Before You Begin section, we will simply press the Next button. Again, Next. Our domain controller is selected. Press Next. And in this list of roles, we have to select something that we did not do before, that is Active Directory Certificate Services. So once we click on that, automatically all the features under that will be shown to us. We'll click on the Add Features button, then click Next, then click Next again. And in this list of role services, we will select Certificate Enrollment Policy. Click on the Add Features, then Certificate Enrollment Web Services, then Certificate Authority Web Enrollment. Click on the Add Features, click on the Next button, Next again, click Next, and then finally press the Install button. This installation is going to take 8 to 10 minutes. I'll pause the video and I'll resume once the installation is completed. So after around 10 minutes, now we can see that the feature installation is succeeded and it requires a configuration. So we'll just close this window and then we'll go to the Server Manager's notification button here. And there we see that the configuration required message for the Active Directory Certificate Services. So we'll click on this link, Configure Active Directory Certificate Services on this particular server. Then in the resulting window, the credentials of the administrator for this particular domain is automatically selected. We'll just click on the Next button and then we will again select this Certification Authority, then Certification Authority Web Enrollment, and then we'll click Next. Please note that we have to configure this Certificate Enrollment Web Services and Certificate Enrollment Policy Web Service, these two features also, but we can do that only after the previous two are installed. So we'll click on the Next button. Let the first option be selected, Enterprise CA. Click Next, Root CA, Next. Let the first option be selected again, Create a new private key. Press the Next button and we'll select the default cryptographic provider here, and the key strength 2048 is good for us, and the algorithm SHA-256 is also good for us. Then click Next. Let all the defaults be selected. Click Next and select the validity period for the certificate generated for the Certification Authority or CA, and 5 years is good for us. You can change it if you want, but this is more than enough. Then click Next, and the certificate database location, which is selected by default, we are good with that, and press the Next button and a summary page and press the Configure button, and the configuration succeeded for both of them. Press the Close button again. And do you want to configure additional role servers? For this message, we'll press the Yes button so that we get back the screen again. Then again, we will press the Next button, and then we will select the remaining two roles here, Certificate Enrollment Web Service and Certificate Enrollment Policy Web Service. Press the Next button. Let all the defaults be selected. Press the Next button again. Windows Integrated Authentication, let it be selected, then press the Next button. Specify service account recommended. Under this recommendation, we see that it is suggesting the account selected must be a member of the IIS iUsers group. If Kerberos is selected as the authentication type, a service principal name is required for the service account. And to do that, we have to first go to the Tools menu here in the Server Manager, then go to Active Directory, Users and Computers. Then in this window, expand our domain, that is manash.home, select the users, and under the users, select the administrator account, right click to get the context menu and go to the properties of the administrator account. Then go to members of this particular tab, then click on the add button, and in this box we will type in simply IIS and press the check names button, and the group is automatically selected. So we'll simply press the OK button here. Now the administrator account also belongs to IIS iUsers group. Then click on the OK button and close the Active Directory Users and Computers screen. Then go back to our previous configuration screen, press the select button, and in this screen we will use the username, that is administrator, of our domain named Manash, then the password that we set for this particular administrator account. In this case, this is WinSBR1 that we set initially when we configured our Windows Server, and press the OK button. Then press the next button again. Let the Windows Integrated Authentication option be selected. Press the next button. Let the first option be selected, that is choose an existing certificate for SSL encryption. And under that, we have this certificate, and the expiration date is 5 years from now. Select that line and press the next button. Then in the final summary screen, we'll simply press the configure button, and the certification service has been configured, and then we'll close this window. Now we are ready to export our root certificate, and then exported certificate will be transferred to our database server. And to export the certificate, we will first bring a command window, not PowerShell, and in this window we'll use the command certutil -ca.cert root.cert. That is the name of the exported certificate, and this is going to be created under C:\users administrator directory. And the root certificate has been created. Let's do a dir/p/o, and we see this is the certificate that is just created. Now to transfer this root certificate, again we are going to use the scp command. So scp root.cer, then the target server is our database server, and the user is Oracle again. So Oracle @ the IP address of the database server, that is 192.168.1.57:temp. So we are transferring to the temp directory. Password is also Oracle for the Oracle user, and the root certificate has been transferred to the database server. Now we have completed most of the configurations in the AD controller for integration with the Oracle database server. Next, we have to do a few configuration changes in the database server. But before we make any AD specific configuration changes in the database, there are a few very important patches that we have to apply, which I am listing below in the order they are going to be applied. First, the latest OPatch utility, that is the patch P6880.880, which is a recommendation from Oracle, must be applied before applying any other patches. Second, the P32218454, the database release update 19.10. This is actually a prerequisite for the third patch below to fix a bug related to AD. Then the third patch, that is P31404487, that is CMU AD cumulative fixes for database 19C and 18C. Then number 4, the OJVM release update 19.22. And finally, the fifth one, that is P35943157, that is database release update 19.22. Now, depending on your environment, these patches may vary, but you must apply the CMU AD cumulative patch if the bug is still present in your database release. If this bug is present, you won't be able to log in to the database using an AD authenticated database user. I am going to fast forward the video during the patch apply process, as it is going to take almost an hour, and also it is quite straightforward, and as a DBA you might already know that. Shortly, first we transfer the patch zip file to the database server, unzip the patch, check the prerequisites, shut down the database, apply the patch using opatch apply command using the latest opatch utility, bring up the database, apply the data patch, and repeat the steps for the next patch. But don't worry, all these steps are given in the description. If you are new to the database administration, you may follow those steps. Now let's start. So using FileZilla, I'm going to transfer all these 5 zip files of the patches to the temp directory of the database server, and the transfer has been completed. Now let's go back to the database server. Then go to the temp directory, list out all the files, and these are our patch zip files, and we will unzip these files to under the Oracle Home location. First, we will unzip the opatch utility using the unzip -d under Oracle Home. It will be extracted to a directory named P688080, and the name of the zip file. Press enter, and it has been unzipped. Now let's go to the Oracle Home location. This is the unzipped folder. First, let's check the current opatch version using opatch version, which is currently 12.2.0.1.17. So I will rename the current opatch directory to opatch old, and then change directory to the unzipped folder, and under that we have this opatch folder which we need to move out to the database home. So we will use mv opatch to under the Oracle Home. Now let's check the opatch version again. Opatch version, and now it is 12.2.0.1.40. Now I'm going to apply the patches as per the order as I mentioned before. So let's go back to the temp directory first, and then first we will unzip the database release update patch 19.10, which is the patch 322.18454, and I'm going to unzip it to the Oracle Home. So the patch has been unzipped to under the Oracle Home. Let's go to the Oracle Home, do an lslrt, change directory to the patch directory, and under that again the patch subdirectory. First we'll check the prerequisites. So opatch prereq check conflict against Oracle Home with detail -ph./ that is the current Oracle Home. Please make sure that all the environment variables specific to this particular Oracle Home have been already set, and also the database must be up during this prerequisite check, and the opatch has been succeeded, so we are okay to apply this patch. Next we will shut down the database first, and the database has been shut down. Let's exit, and next we will simply execute opatch apply to apply the patch. Press Y to proceed, and press Y to confirm. So I will pause the video and I will resume once the patch has been completely applied. So the release update patch for the database 19.10 has been successfully applied. Now we'll bring up the database and apply the data patch. startup. Then to apply the data pets, I'll use the Oracle Home opets data pets utility minus verbose. Again, I will pause the video and I will resume once this data patch has been applied. So the release update patch 19.10 has been successfully applied, and in the similar way, I completed applying all the remaining patches. Okay, so now we can see that all the 5 patches have been successfully applied, including the data patches. If you are able to see these messages where it is saying that some of the interim patches have been rolled back because we have applied the latest RU22, that is fine. All we want is that bug related to AD and CMU should have been removed by our patch application. Now, for the remaining steps in the database, we will first start the TNS listener using lsnrctl start listener, which was previously brought down for the patch applications. And now, first we will create a file called dsi.ora. That file contains the information about our domain controller. Let's clear the screen first. And go to the Oracle Home directory. And we'll use the command to create this file called dsi.ora under the ldep admin directory within the Oracle Home. And we will put the information here in this file where DSI directory servers is our winserver1.manage.home, and the ports are pretty much the default ports. Then the DSI default admin context is the first component of our domain, that is the manage, and the second component home. Then DSI directory server type AD. With this information, I will save the file. Then we have to create a wallet for the AD authentications. So we will first make a directory under the Oracle base admin within that Oracle SID, and the name of the directory will be wallet. Please note that this directory is outside of our Oracle Home, because that can be shared by other databases or other Oracle Homes also. Press enter, and then we will change directory to the wallet directory, and there, using ora pki command, first we will create the wallet. So ora pki wallet create minus wallet dot minus auto login, which is going to create the wallet in the current directory. And the password we are going to specify is orcl1 wallet 2024. So I am pasting the password in the prompt, which is invisible to you, and I am using the password orcl1 wallet 2024 with W in the wallet as capital. Press enter, paste it again, and the wallet has been created. In your case, you can specify any password. The minimum complexity should be maintained. Now, I will create some entries in this wallet. So I'm going to create this entry using the make store command, which is make store minus WRL dot minus create entry oracle.security.username for the user or a user. Again, you don't have to remember these commands. Just follow the order in which they are specified in the description of this video. Press enter. And it is going to ask for the wallet password that we created as orcl1 wallet 2024 that I'm pasting here. And the first entry has been created. Then I'm going to create the second entry as the password for this particular user or a user using make store minus WRL dot create entry oracle.security.password. And here I have to specify the password that belongs to this particular user or a user. If you remember, while creating this AD user, we specified a password user aura 12345 with the first E replaced by the number 3 and U in capital. So I'm just pasting the password here, which is invisible to you. Confirmation, and then it will ask for the wallet password. I'm pasting it here, and the second entry for the password is also created. I'm going to make the third entry, that is make store -wrl dot create entry oracle.security.dn, and here I'm specifying the properties for our domain controller along with the Aura user, which is the service account that we created for the communication between the Oracle database software and the Active Directory controller. Press enter, and it will ask for the wallet password again. I'm pasting it here, and the third entry has been created. Now we have to import the certificate, that is the root certificate that we exported in our domain controller server and which we transferred using SCP to this database server in the temp directory. So let's validate that file is still there using lslrt/tmp/star.cer was the extension, and we see this is available there as the root certificate, and we are going to import this certificate using the command aura-pki wallet add -wallet dot -cert and the location of the certificate under trusted certificate in this wallet. Press enter, and we have to specify the wallet password. I just pasted it, and the operation is successfully completed. Now let's display the wallet information using the aura-pki wallet display -wallet dot command, and here we see the relevant information. Now let's display the wallet information with a few more details about these 3 entries that we created, and for that we are going to use the command. Let's clear the screen first, and the command will be make store -wrl dot view entry, and we are specifying all the 3 entries that we created, that is security username, security DN, and security password. Specify the wallet password again, and now we see the details, that is the username Aura user, security DN, that is the domain controller information, and the password for this Aura user, that is user Aura 12345. With this we have completed the wallet configuration for AD integration. Now we have to make a few changes in the database. So connect to the database as sysdba, and then first we will see the parameter value for OS authentication prefix, where we see that the prefix is currently OPS $, which is default, and we are going to make it as a blank string. So we will use the command alter system set OS authentication prefix equals to blank scope sp file. Also let's display the LDAP directory related parameter values. Oops. It should be show parameter LDAP directory, and we see that the LDAP directory access is equal to none, and LDAP directory sysauth is no. We have to change these 2 parameters, and the first parameter we are going to use as password, that is alter system set LDAP directory access equals to password scope both, and similarly alter system set LDAP directory sysauth equals to yes. And with this I am going to bounce the database for the changes to take effect. And the database has been bounced. Now a few of the remaining steps we have to do in the domain controller server. So let's go back to the domain controller, minimize the command prompt and the server manager, and bring up our PowerShell. And here I am going to create a user, and this is the user that is actually the AD authenticated database user. So I am going to paste the command here. This is a similar command that I used to create the first username Aura user for the Oracle database and AD communication. And this is actually the database user which will be used to log into the database. And the name of the user is Aura DBA, surname expert, login name Aura DBA with O in smaller case, user principal name Aura DBA at manoj.home, display name Aura DBA expert, description Oracle DBA, path, that is domain specific path, which includes the group and the components of the domain, change password at logon false, password never expires, true, cannot change password, true, enable true, and it will ask for the password, which I am going to specify as a complex password that is acceptable to the domain controller. Password policies. In your case, you specify a password that is convenient for you. So I'm going to just paste it here and it's invisible to you. Press enter and the user has been created. Now let's validate with another command, that is get AD user identity Aura DBA. So this is the user that we just created. Now we need to put this user under different security groups created for the Oracle integration along with the password filters. So first let's see which groups this particular user currently belongs to. So I'll use the command get AD principal group membership for Aura DBA pipe select name. And we see that currently it belongs to only the domain users group. It means it is not yet a member of the security groups for Oracle integration. So we are going to use the command add AD principal group membership minus identity Aura DBA member of Aura VFR 11Z. If you remember, we created 3 groups in this AD controller with the names Aura VFR 11Z, Aura VFR 12C, and Aura VFR MD5. So this MD5 we don't have to use here. I just created for the sake of completion. Now I'll press enter to make this user a member of this particular group. Similarly, I will also execute the command to make this Aura DBA user a member of the Aura VFR 12C group. Now let's display the membership information one more time to make sure that the user has been put in appropriate groups. And now we see it belongs to these 3 groups: domain users, Aura VFR 12C, and Aura VFR 11Z. Now let's display the user information one more time to make sure that the ORCL common attribute property has been properly set for this user, which is very important for this AD authentication to happen for the database user. So I am going to use this command get AD user identity Aura DBA properties ORCL common attribute. And we see that actually the ORCL common attribute is blank here, which is not yet set. So I am going to set this property using the command, which is actually going to set the password for this user. I'm just pasting the command here, set AD account password minus identity Aura DBA, reset new password, convert to secure string as plain text, and the password that I mentioned before, which I'm going to set here for this Aura DBA user using the force option. So press enter and the password has been reset. Now let's execute this previous command one more time to see that the ORCL common attribute property is set. And yes, we see that this time there is an encrypted string for this particular property. So our user is successfully created with proper configuration. Now let's go back to the database server for the remaining steps. First, let's go to the Oracle Home DBS directory to find out the password file version for this database. So cd Oracle Home DBS, list out the files, and this is the password file. Let's first check the version of this password file. using aura pwd describe file aura pworcl1, and we see that the format is currently 12. We have to make it 12.2. So first let's take a backup of this file. Then using the same file, we will create the 12.2 version of this file. So aura pwd input file, that is the current file, and the output file, that is aura pworcl12. This is the new file that is going to be created with format 12.2. Press enter, and the file has been created. Now I will rename this file to the original password file name, that is mv aura pworcl12 to aura pworcl1. Now let's check the version one more time, and now it is 12.2. Now let's log into the database as DBA, and we are going to create the database user, which is actually AD authenticated database user. So SQL plus /s sysdba. I am just pasting the command, then I am going to explain it. So the command is create user aura DBA identified globally. See this keyword here, instead of identified by clause, we are using identified globally, which means that this is going to be an external user authenticated by the AD. And here we are specifying all the properties of the user which are domain specific, that is the common name aura DBA and common name second part, that is users, and the domain component, that is the first component of the domain Manas, and the second component of the domain, that is home. Please note that you don't have to remember this particular part. Instead, you can go back to the output of the command that we executed in the PowerShell to find out the details about this particular user, where you'll be able to see this particular string. So I will just show you again. So I'll go back, and the output of the user properties, we see this distinguished name where we have all these details. All we need to do is to copy this particular string and paste it in the create user command in the database. So let's go back to the SQL prompt, and I'll just press enter to create the user. The user has been created, and now I am going to grant some permission to this user, that is just the create session. And secondly, I will grant it the select privilege on the $v database so that it can query this particular view, which is done. And now I am going to use this particular user that we just created to log into the database. So exit first, and then I'm going to use SQL plus aura DBA slash the password, this password that I specified for the user @orcl1. Press enter. Oops, I did a mistake here. I did not check if the database server can reach out to our domain controller. So let's exit from this error prompt. Then I'll simply do a ping command to test the connectivity or reachability of this database server with our domain controller. So I'll specify here the name of the domain controller, that is winsbr1.manas.home, and we see that it is not returning the output. It means it is not able to reach out to our domain controller. So obviously our login attempt will fail because the authentication mechanism is not yet working because of connectivity issue. So we'll have to make an entry to the etc host file for this particular domain controller server so that our database server can ping that name. So I'll have to start a shell for the root user using su-root, and the password, let's edit the etc host file, and here we'll make an entry for our domain controller, that is first the IP address of the domain controller, that is 192.168.1.165, and the name of the domain controller, that is the host name, which is winsvr1.manash.home, and also winsvr1. You can make similar entry in the domain controller also for this particular database server, but that is optional because the domain controller does not require to reach out to this database host. So I will save this file and then exit from the root shell, and I'll do the ping command again, and this time I can see that the database server is able to reach out to our domain controller. Let's terminate the command, and this time I will try again with the same SQL plus command. That is, let's first clear the screen, and this time I will execute the command again to log into the database using the AD authenticated user, that is SQL plus Aura DBA, and the password and @orcl1. And yes, now we can see that the user is able to connect to the database. Do a show user Aura DBA. Now I'm going to execute one SQL command to find out a few more details and its accessibility to the database. You don't have to remember this command. I'm giving it in the description again. So this will give us some information about the user, the authenticated identity, authentication method, the LDAP server type, enterprise identity, etc. in one single output. So press enter, and here we see that the database name ORCL1 session user Aura DBA authenticated identity Manash/Aura DBA, that is the domain, and authenticated method password global, it is not local, LDAP server type AD, that is our Active Directory, and the enterprise identity, which has all the domain specific information about this user. So now we can conclude that we have successfully configured our Oracle database with Microsoft Active Directory, and we can create AD authenticated database users for this particular database. In the next part, that is part 3 of this series, we will learn how to configure passwordless database login for an AD user using Kerberos authentication. So viewers, please provide your feedback in the comment section of the video and hit the like button if you found it useful. That will mean a lot to me and help grow this channel.